The San Javier Mission, also known as the White Dove of the Desert, is one of southern Arizona's most breathtaking landmarks. The building you are looking at is well over 200 years old and is built on the site of the original mission, which was founded in 1700 by Padre Eusebio Kino. Kino left his past as chair of mathematics at Austria's University of Ingolstadt to evangelize Native Americans. He named the mission for Saint Francis Xavier and instituted the praying of the Novena of Grace, in which believers ask for help from the mission's patron saint. When a local priest, Father Ignacio Joseph Ramirez y Arellano, died in 1805, witnesses said that for several hours his body glowed, sweated, and produced a strangely sweet aroma. This was seen as a miracle, and the power of St. Francis and the Novena of Grace was established among the Tohono O'odham tribe, on whose reservation the mission is located. The Tohono O'odham, which means desert dwellers, began to perform mandas, sacrifices to St. Francis, in exchange for help, usually with a side relative or loved one. Inside the mission is a statue of St. Francis. Catholics from all over the world make pilgrimages to attach handwritten pleas for help to the yellow blanket that is draped over the statue. According to tribal tradition, every year on October 4, the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi, Tohono O'odham men walk nearly 60 miles in 100-degree heat from the U.S.-Mexican border town of Nogales to Magdalena, where another statue of the saint rests in an old church in the middle of that town's plaza. Why, you might ask, would people who worship St. Francis Xavier perform mandas on the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi? Well, it all has to do with the church intrigue and politics around the time of the American Revolution. In 1773, France's king, Charles, ordered the Jesuits disbanded. Among other things, this left San Javier Mission without any missionaries. The Franciscans, a different order, rushed in to take up the slack and tried to switch everything over to their patron saint. They even changed the pilgrimage away from Javier's Saint Day of December 3 to October 4. Now, the Tohono O'odham celebrates St. Francis Xavier on the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi. To the chagrin of Jesuits and Franciscans alike, the two saints have become almost interchangeable, and few people are completely familiar with the history of the controversy.
My native people believe that St. Francis of Assisi. I know other tribes agree that believe in other names, but I mean, from when I was taught, it's always been that and nothing else.
As a Yaqui, I was raised to believe that it is St. Francis of Xavier. I know that the Tohono O'odham tribe believes that it's St. Francis of Assisi, and at this point, we just agree to disagree.
While the Tohono O'odham seem content to blur the line of distinction between the two saints, it's really rather difficult not to tell them apart. They were born 325 years apart, Francis of Assisi in 1181 and Francis Xavier in 1506. From here on, in this portion, for clarity's sake, I will refer to St. Francis of Assisi as Francis and St. Francis Xavier as Xavier. Francis was born in Italy, Xavier in Spain. Francis was the son of a rich cloth merchant, Xavier of a farmer. Francis was something of a juvenile delinquent, a street fighter and a part-time soldier. By the time he was 19, Xavier was at the University of Paris. Francis's native language was Italian. Xavier's was what many consider to be the strangest language on earth, Basque. Perhaps most importantly, Francis of Assisi was never a priest. Xavier was ordained into the Society of Jesus at the age of 31. Xavier was converted to his calling by Ignatius Loyola, an older man whom he met at the university. Francis came to his calling all on his own after being captured in a war between his native Assisi and Perugia. After spending a year in prison, Francis accepted his conversion and abandoned all worldly goods to follow Christ. Xavier was something of a religious snob or even a bigot. He felt that devotees of other religions were pagans, and he never was impressed with holy men of other religions. On the other hand, Francis would preach to him and interact with just about anybody who was willing to listen to him. Francis didn't travel far from his home of Assisi during his life, while St. Francis Xavier undertook a mission to India and then to China, where he preached to the masses and eventually died. Xavier is said to have performed many miracles and is the patron saint of all Catholic missions, thus the white dove of the desert. However, St. Francis, whom many consider to be the most beloved of all Catholic saints, although you might get an argument from devotees of St. Patrick and Nick, has a resume that will open a lot of eyes. For example, St. Francis of Assisi is the patron saint of Colorado. Considering that pesky separation of church and state thing, it's hard to imagine a state with a patron saint. Among many other things, he is also the patron saint of animals, firefighters, and environmentalists. He is also the patron saint of Assisi, Italy, Kadapuram, India, Salina, Kansas, Santa Fe, New Mexico, Freising, Germany, and the Nambe Indian Pueblo. And finally, he is the patron saint of families, lace makers, tapestries, and zoos. Both men renounced all worldly goods, although Francis did so after his father, angry over his son's religious conversion, disinherited him. Francis lived most of his life as a beggar, although that somehow allowed him to gather a considerable following, which became the Franciscans. A female branch of the Franciscans was known as the Poor Clares. Both men lived to be 45, and now both saints are helping Catholics in general, and Tohono O'odham and Pascua Yaqui in particular, to deal with the pains and trials of modern life. Adding to the touchiness of the situation is the Pascua Yaqui tribe, whose reservation is adjacent to that of the O'odham. The Yaquis have deeply held traditions built around Easter, Pascua, the holiest day of the year for Catholics. The Yaquis believe that the statue is that of St. Francis Xavier and are not thrilled with the confusion over the two St. Francises. They shouldn't be interchangeable, but to many, they're certainly indispensable.